With Harmony Woods, we had hoped, we continue to hope, that we will engage with the entire community of all ages, from the youngest to the oldest, to understand about environmental stewardship and the importance of getting in touch with it, helping to look after it, caring for it, understanding it. We invited Southampton University up here as a result of a friendship with Elmer that I have had over a number of years. We were originally colleagues working together on an outdoor learning programme, and I knew that we were going to put a pond into the wood, and that the site of the pond was between two Bronze Age barrows. And when the earth movers came in to dig out quite deep sections, I thought, well, if they're digging out the soil anyway, why on earth don't we take a look? And knowing that Chris was an archaeologist and had a keen interest in engaging with people in the community to come and help out with that sort of thing, he was the obvious person to go to. The fact that we have archaeologists working up here, for me, is incredible. I have a fascination with archaeology. Blame it on Jurassic Park, probably, but it's something that I have always wanted to get my hands on, you know, have a go at troweling, see what you find. The fact that you're working with people who can see a stone and get quite excited about the fact that it isn't just a stone, it's a piece of chiselled flint that somebody made thousands of years ago for a particular purpose. So working with people who can read the landscape and read the history of what was here before we arrived with our plan to make a wood for everybody. So that's incredible.
Well, there's a few of us, and you probably see a few people in the background from the University of Southampton. And my interest is actually public engagement with archaeology, so getting communities and schools involved in archaeology. We know that there are
3 ploughed out barrows from the Bronze Age, which goes back to about 2500 BC.
2 over in that direction, there's 1 over there within the Harmony Woods compound, and there's also an Iron Age settlement, it seems probable, beyond sort of the tree line just over there. And what's really interesting about where we're digging, where the pond is being put in, is that we're actually in a site where you have a space between Bronze Age barrows. So we're quite intrigued about what will we find between barrows. And what we would have seen here would have been, originally in the Bronze Age, that sort of very ritual, sacred place that people would have come to for burying special members of their community. And so what's going on here is very different from the life in the valleys, you know, or in the Bronze Age farmsteads down the side of the hills, where you've got farming, you've got small settlements, not big villages, just really small settlements, roundhouses, pig, sheep, goat, cow, and so on. So part of our preparation was actually getting the pond area delimited. So we've had to string out a rectangle within the pond. We've taken the turf layer off, we did that yesterday, and we're basically going down to find the next layer below the topsoil. And topsoil is always very mixed, and what we're getting coming up at the moment demonstrates that very much, because we've got a pretty modern looking bolt. You get quite a lot of brick, more locally made in the Roman period, and you know, there were Roman settlements known of nearby, especially where you've got the crossroads of the 2 Roman roads. There's a settlement there, it's almost like a modern service station on a motorway or something.
Would have been twice as high.
We've got quite a range of schools that are coming for a start, and that's great. We've also got I run a Young Archaeology Club with colleagues in Andover, and they're coming next weekend to actually dig. So we'll show them the whole process and get them to think about what digging means and why we do it. But we've also got members of the local community involved. Quite a range of, you know, people coming.
I heard about the project from a tweet through the Andover Museum. Well, I want to be an archaeologist when I'm older, so can't start too early, right? We've been involved in clearing the turf to open up the second trench.
The next stage is going to be taking the next layer off. We're going to do some matticking next. Very much enjoying the experience.
Yeah. We've learned it's hard work.
You don't have to go down very far to be finding things that are from the 16th century. It brings it a lot more to life.
With me and my mum, we have our own bit of land that we are going to do test pits this summer, is that right? So this will definitely help us in that way, and that's, you can't just stick it in the ground and make a massive hole and say, that's good work. You have to be very precise.
This has given us an idea of a good insight into how a site develops. We'll take that experience with us, and we'll be able to then teach other members of our archaeology group.
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah.
So the activities that we're getting the children to do is the ancient technologies, and we're looking into what technology means to the people that come up and participate on the site, and how that differs from the ancient technologies that were available during Bronze Age. One of the things we're looking at is the clay tiles. Clay is obviously important to this site because of the amount of clay that we're finding in the archaeological dig. The children have had the opportunity to make the tiles. We've also looked at tools that we've made out of wood so that they can imprint and look at how possible imprintation was done through clay.
One more for Faith, yeah.
I'm not going to lie, that's quite thick.
You've still got a little bit to go there, haven't you? Right.
The intention will be to let these dry naturally, and then we're going to fire them, and then the hope will be that we will use these within an art installation end of this year, beginning of next year.
Okay, on the count of 3, tell me how many. 1, 2, 3. 4. So 4 things. I'm going to give you...
Other activities we've got that we've been looking at are that we've got a treasure hunt that we do. They get clues, they've got to go and find the answers on their sheet, and that gets them to explore the site and also looks at other bits and pieces to do with the archaeological dig. So by the end of the 2-week period, we're hoping to have had anywhere up to around 200 children come up over sort of 6 or 7 schools and participate within the dig.
Get up, so I will say clear up your loose. And I'm going to introduce you to chocolate.
I think it's really great. The children are really getting involved in the history, and it's great for them to get out of the classroom, experience what it's like to be a real historian, a real archaeologist. It's a really wonderful experience. We've done lots of pre-work about coming up here. It's about sort of inspiring that interest in history, really getting stuck in. We talked about what being an archaeologist would be like and what they were hoping to find out, what the project was hoping to find out, and talked about Harmony Woods as well as a sort of eco-local project that we should all be proud of being involved in, really.
It's really important that we learn about history because it helps us to understand about our own time and what's happening before.
There's your needle.
So we've found quite a lot of worked flint, which demonstrates quite clearly that this area was full of people who were actually working flint. Here's a rather nice piece of worked flint. You can see it's been knapped on 3 sides and it's snapped off, so this may have been a knife blade. We found a number of burnt flints. These are in point of fact pot boilers, and they're used to heat up in the fire. In order to get the water to boil very rapidly, you pop them in and the water will boil remarkably quickly. In addition, we've got indications of iron working or smelting of some kind. So this is basically slag. It's part of the debris that is made as a result of smelting iron. This piece, which is magnetic, here's a magnet, and it is attracted. So this has got iron in it, and it's quite likely to be the product of smithing. We've got quite a bit of pottery. So we have one particularly characteristic piece of Roman pot. This is a rim, or a fragment of a rim. It's a Roman pot. And one can tell that it's Roman because, for a start, it's very beautifully made, so it's been turned on a wheel. It's got a painted surface. This is what is called Oxfordshire ware, or sometimes Nene Valley ware. Coming much later, we've got quite a bit of 17th century slipware, tin-glazed slipware. We've got a series of clay pipes. So they're pipe stems. That one's very narrow and has a very narrow borehole. This is a bigger one with a much bigger borehole. And this one, again, has got a very narrow one. And the narrower boreholes are an indication of the oldness, of the antiquity of the pot. Because tobacco, of course, was much more expensive when it was first introduced in the 17th century. And so, therefore, you needed to pay more for less. The trouble is I don't go on that.
Go! That's it. Oh, there we go. Yeah,
that was a good one.
No, we got away with it on top.
Oh, yes.
What you're looking at here is trench 1 of our excavations that we started 2 weeks ago now, and the ground that you're looking at and that I'm stood on is actually natural. So it's composed mostly of chalk and clay with flints. What we found above that, where we found the finds that Jude's talked about, is in the topsoil layer, which on the back here you can just see is where we're down to at the very end of this trench. And what was inside that was lots of what Jude showed you, the struck flints, evidence for Bronze Age activity, but also evidence for medieval manuring and other processes around about the 17th century. Archaeologically, we found nothing actually cut into the natural, so we're not looking at structures or potential settlement areas, but the amount of struck flint that we found does suggest we have a settlement within the vicinity of where we're digging. And now we do know that those barrows are extremely close to where we have dug, so there's potential for future work close to this area.
Yeah. And it might be that you've
Well, we've come to the end of our 2 weeks of digging, and it's been a really interesting 2 weeks because we've got that balance between archaeology but also community and schools, and we've had some really sterling support from community volunteers, but we've also had a lot of help and support in terms of them helping us with school groups, so tons of support, but also lots of people getting involved. One thing that I've been reflecting on while we've been digging is actually how very compatible rather than incompatible the whole notion of bringing volunteers in, community engagement, school engagement to a dig is actually really enhanced the nature of the dig, and the very sort of sense of that success has made us feel, even though we've not found the most amazing features or the most amazing archaeological finds, what we have felt is it's been a real success and it's been good for us. So it's been that getting that balance just right, I think, between good archaeology, doing it professionally, doing it properly and responsibly, but also involving schools, involving the community and giving them a feeling for their local heritage and get a glimpse of what archaeology is about.